Welcome everyone to the Analytic Mind podcast. I'm here today with Lars Schreiber. If I pronounced that right, Lars, or was it close enough? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Schreiber.
Good. Calling in from Germany, we're having a discussion at two ends of the globe today. But Lars, why don't I just throw to you, and you can give the listeners a bit more of an intro, and then we can kick off our discussion about all things data related and self-service BI related. I think is sort of going to be the core topics we talk about today. But hey, I'll throw it to you, and you can just give a bit more detail about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I try to keep it short and interesting. First of all, thanks for the invite, Sam. Love to be here. My name is Lars. I come from Germany, Hamburg. Have a business administration background. Worked as a business controller for 11 years, but always liked the data stuff more. So I was the Excel guy, the VBA guy, the Microsoft Access guy, trying to do BI before I even knew what BI was. And then in 2011, 12, I can hardly remind that Power Pivot came along, and the world changed. And then 2 years later, the big companion Power Query came along, and the world changed again massively. And I just loved doing it. Didn't find a company that wanted to have one guy from a non-technical department doing what we call now self-service BI. So in 2018, I decided to do my own thing, and now I'm a freelancer for, it's 5 years almost, and helping companies with, doing analytics on a more advanced basis.
Awesome. There's so much that we can dive into today. I'm interested to learn about what you're doing now, but also maybe go back to how you how you worked initially with, or how you evolved your skill set around Power Pivot and Power Query, and how that really kick-started things for you in terms of what you could do within businesses from a business intelligence point of view.
When I talk about those things, I try to explain to people that in the beginning, I simply didn't understand what those tools were for, what to do with it. I noticed, or I learned about Power Pivot when my Excel pivot table broke, because back then I worked for a company in a reporting department. We sent reports to the decentralized controllers, and we used to have the data in Access databases and load those data, those relatively long tables, into the usual pivot cache from Microsoft Excel. And when you had 5.5 million rows in a relatively small table, this pivot cache couldn't handle the mass of data, and it just crashed. So I was looking for a better solution, and I found Power Pivot, and I simply thought, hey, that's a bigger pivot table. And I had the pleasure talking to Rob Colley, who you might know from Power Pivot Pro or P3 Adaptive, how they are called now, and he worked in the Excel department back then. And we talked about that this name Pivot, Power Pivot, is simply misleading, because it has nothing to do with a pivot table. It's just this engine behind Excel that lets you create analytical data models. But I thought it's a pivot table. But on the other hand, that brought me to trying it. I had no technical background without except VBA programming. And if they would market it like, hey, here's your multidimensional database or an analytical database, just try it, I would have never tried that, because I would have been scared. So it's good and bad in parallel. So, and I noticed this is different than Googling VLOOKUP in Excel, or trying to figure out how to do a loop in VBA. And I bought some books, and there were not many out there back then. I think something from Marco and Alberto, our friends from SQL BI, and Rob Colley. And then I changed my contract with my employer, because I noticed this is something I won't learn just with 5 minutes a day or something. I knew I need to focus on it. And I cut down my contract to 80%, and used my Fridays to learn this technology, read books, and play with it, because at work I didn't have the opportunity to do it. And then I understood somehow what Power BI is, or Power Pivot was, but I had no clue about star schema. Nobody outside the BI world talked about star schemata, And then Power Query came along, and the problem is when you don't know about how your data model should look like, you don't know about ETL, because it's good when you know your ETL tool, but if you don't know how to shape your data, if you don't know the goal, you simply don't do it, because you don't know where to go. And when I saw Power Query, I didn't know what to do with it except loading tables without transformation. And I didn't want to use it because it was complex. Another language was, I could do the things in VBA faster just because I knew the language. And over time, I learned how amazing this tool is and what you can do with it. And I learned to appreciate it. Yeah. And of course, two different languages, two totally different concepts. I think what's most difficult for people who deal as a newbie with Power BI is that they don't learn a new tool. They learn to do business intelligence concepts with a new tool, but nobody's talking about this business intelligence concepts. And this is why people fail in the beginning very often. That's my experience.
Yeah, no, look, those are, you made so many good points in there, in describing that. And a couple that I want to dive into a little bit more is one, I couldn't agree with you more that Power Pivot was marketed so, the marketing was so ineffective from the brand name, and also the fact that it was just hidden as an Excel edit. It wasn't its own product initially. It would have been an interesting discussion internally at Microsoft when they came up with this brand new technology. Someone in there must have known it was really quite amazing. But then someone with in the Excel team said this should be like an Excel. It sort of unfortunately was so hidden for so long. Like I would say the majority of Excel users didn't even know it existed.
Definitely not. No,
at all. So it's interesting that they had a few missteps early on where they could have got the technology out into a lot of hands a lot earlier, but it is what it is. They certainly reimagined it much better with Power BI, and that's when I really started to recognize, wow, this is actually an analytical engine, like you were describing. It's something completely different to Excel or VBA. It's sort of like a new paradigm, right? Like it's a new way to sort of analyze information. And I only really I knew of Power Pivot, but never really used it because I didn't think it added any value to my Excel experience. But then when I saw it in Power BI, that really convinced me. I was is when I realized, wow, this is actually a huge paradigm shift. And then I actually also read Rob Colley's book, and he sort of double convinced me that this is the real deal. And aligning those two things together is what really convinced me. Sorry, I'm just digressing a little bit, just talking about my own story. But the other thing the other really interesting thing that I want to talk to you a little bit more about is Excel and VBA really lend themselves quite well to Googling, right?
Yeah.
But when you get into Power BI, and I've seen this over time, it actually doesn't, because there's multiple factors that go into building a high quality solution. It's not it's not like you can just look at a formula and just drill down into that anymore. Yes,
people
you can
try
run a DAX.
They try that still.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. Everyone's trying to fix everything with DAX still, even now, right? And I was actually on a summit with Zebra BI last week, and I said this. I said, for some reason out there, DAX has become the whole the absolute key thing to learn and do within Power BI, when in reality it's only one part of a whole variance of things that you need to get right inside of Power BI to create a really high quality BI solution. So I'm interested, on your take around that, and the issues with trying to learn Power BI through Googling, and how that can sort of hinder you rather than help you.
When I get contact to new customers, potential customers, I have two categories of customers: those who have heard about Power BI but never put their hand on it, and just want to learn it and maybe want to have a solution to their problem, create a report or something. And you have those that already worked with Power BI and now get in trouble. So don't getting the right figures out of their formula and just don't know where to start. And when I deal with the second category, so those who already have a solution, the communication usually looks like this. They send me a mail or call me and say, Lars, we work with Power BI quite a while, for 3 months now, and it works pretty well. But now we're starting getting wrong figures. I say, okay, let's go on Zoom, show me your data model. Did you do a star schema? Did I do what? They never heard about data modeling. So if you have never heard about data modeling, you have never heard about how to transform your data. So, and this is why I say when I deal with those kind of customers, in the beginning, I always have to dry tears, because they are proud of what they did. They Googled, they read a bit in a book and tried and experienced this great tool, but they didn't have any theoretical foundation. They didn't know the concepts. They thought they learned a new tool, but not that they learn a new tool to, work on those concepts. And this is why I always describe a solution in Power BI or any other BI solution. I don't know them. I only know Power BI, but it's the same in the other tools as well, like building up a house. Your ETL process is the foundation, and the walls and the ceilings are the data model and the measures, and the report is the roof. The problem is when you notice that your roof has trouble, you need to tear everything down to the foundation to make the foundation wider and to build up the house again. So this is better and simpler and better for maintenance. A data model is never finished, than trying to fix it with DAX, as you said. And in the beginning, you need to gain trust, because people think, hey, he's a consultant, he wants to earn money. But it's like that. If you don't have the star schema, if you have two kinds of data models. You have whether the one big table, because an Excel kind of person works with it, or you have this third normal form import from a relational database, which also leads to trouble. So, and you need to get it back to this simple star schema, but people don't know what it is usually.
Yeah. Look, it's so interesting, isn't it? And this is why we internally at Enterprise DNA, we came up with this concept called the 4 pillars approach. And I've used the house analogy as well, but it's data transformations, data modeling, DAX calculations, reports, and visualizations. And sometimes we've even actually added on a 5th pillar, which is about understanding the data, understanding the requirements, understanding what your consumers want to have a look at. Doing that assessment up front can also be a strong pillar to work into your development as well.
This last pillar you mentioned, it's a very interesting thing, because if the person from this non-technical department, my English is lacking here, just a person from marketing or controlling or whatever, if they build up their own reports in Power BI, so the real self-service BI, the person who has the understanding about the figures is also creating this technical solution. So Rob Colley would talk about communication costs now, so that when you have a consultant who develops this stuff, you tell them you always have problems with communication. People understand something else, create the solution you didn't mean, and then you go back and redevelop the stuff, and it takes time and money. But if the same person who has the understanding about the figures creates the solution, which is the approach with self-service BI, this last pillar is just not existing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a really good point. One of my questions for you is, how do we solve this? How do we solve the fact that learning through Googling is actually pretty difficult with Power BI? Like, for example, one thing that I've always wanted to build in enterprise DNA, and one day we might, is someone should be able to look up how to build a data model for the scenario that they are building their model for. For example, so if you're in a marketing department, or if you're an accountant, or if you work in pharmaceuticals, or you work in the hotel industry, you have all of these models that you can reference to create a good model, because that doesn't exist today. But as we've discussed, data modeling is such an essential part of building a high quality Power BI report. So
Yeah.
how do you think this could be solved in a Google type world? How can it be solved better, or is it not even possible? Is it more an intuition type thing? You need to learn the foundational concepts of all of these different pillars, and then it's sort of more intuition based.
What I always try to be is to be honest with my clients, or every person I talk to. It's not only clients. That the marketing Microsoft tries to make with you have a ready to use solution within 5 minutes. Of course, this works with very, very simple reports, but if you have actuals and you have budget and you have forecasts with different granularities, it doesn't work anymore. That this marketing doesn't really work for a real world solution. So I'm trying to be honest that in my shelf, there are about 15 books that I had to go through to understand what I know now. And of course, people don't need that right at the beginning, but they need to understand that there are different concepts that they, no matter where they come from relational database or Excel, they can't use the knowledge they have there. They need to relearn, to throw away their knowledge from the other stuff and relearn for Power BI. And that in this case, it's even more necessary to have a good starting point, like a good book, good online course, a good solution like you offer with Enterprise DNA, or what I offer is one day training courses. I always say you won't learn Power BI in 1 day, but this can be a starting point, and this can be a point where you can decide whether you want to go further on this route, or you will never use it yourself, but you know what Power BI is capable of, and you can better communicate with internal or external consultants. Because if I don't know what a tool is capable of, I don't make the right requirements,
Mm-hmm.
And you need a good foundation. And from then on, it's a journey. You won't learn it within a couple of weeks. If that's possible, I did something wrong, definitely.
Yeah, nice. No, look, I agree. I think one thing that we've definitely learned, and we've not, when you really learn Power BI well, you sort of recognize this quite quickly, is that you probably need some sort of formalized training at some point, whether it's through a book or whether it's through some courses. There's just too many facets to a best practice model development, and then when you think about that from a wider perspective throughout a team or within an organization, you want everyone to be developing in a similar way, and so you want everyone to be learning in a similar way at a similar speed if you can, so that you can get a consistent deployment happening with all of your Power BI all of your Power BI initiatives. So yeah, interesting take, and appreciate your thoughts on that. So you're dealing with a lot of self-service BI. You're obviously you've been really dedicated to this space over the last few years.
Yeah.
What are some of the insights that you've had working with customers around what has created an environment for a really successful self-service implementation of Power BI?
One of the most surprising things I had was at a 1-day training with the customer and 1-day coaching, showing them what Power BI can do and trying to develop a solution for them for a specific report they had. And after those 2 days, I asked this person what she thinks about Power BI now, if she likes it, if she doesn't like it, if she sees all the opportunities that come up now. And she said, well, this cross-filtering is nice, but to be honest, everything we need to do, we can do better with PowerPoint. It was like, did I get that right? PowerPoint? And she said yes. And in the beginning, I thought we had a complete different discussion, and she didn't understand a single word from what I said. But then I understood she was looking for a reporting solution, not for an analytical solution. And even though I have no theoretical background in what is reporting, what is BI, what is data science, but my basic understanding is when people want reporting, they want to be able to comment on figures. Why is the development of this figure like it was? And they want to put words next to this figure. Of course, this is possible in Power BI too, but not that easy with Power Apps and writing back to another database or something. But there, of course, has to be a step before writing down the comment. You need to understand why the development was like it was. So you need analytics. And therefore, you need Power BI or a similar tool. It's not the only tool on the planet. And now, this is one of the first questions I ask when potential customers come to me and ask for a reporting solution. My question is, what is your understanding of reporting? What do you really want? To figure this out, because otherwise, in the end, after you created this solution, it's not what they wanted, and you disappoint them. Another thing, of course, is education. You need to figure out which people really want to develop. I had an interview with Marco Russo a couple of years ago, and I asked him if he thinks that this self-service BI thing is just marketing, if it really exists. My own blog is called the Self-Service BI blog. But I just wanted to know his opinion about it. And he said, way back, 30 years back, Excel was a skill nobody had. Yeah, people from the university or from wherever go into the business world, and everyone knows Excel now. But 30 years back, it was different. And a couple of days ago, I had an interview with a student from a university who wanted to interview me because he is learning self-service BI and writes his diploma thesis bachelor thesis about self-service BI. So people now coming from those institutions already know what Power BI is. So 10 years in the future, this thing will look totally different. But now you need to educate those people. It's not like, here's Excel, Google what a VLOOKUP is, start doing, and you know how many mistakes happen in an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, how many errors, how many wrong calculated figures. But think of it, how many you will have in a BI solution created by people who have never heard about ETL, data modeling, and context transition or stuff. Yeah. I don't want to know that.
No, look, I mean, that's one of the biggest trends, right? Is that the most valuable people within organizations are the ones that are going to have these skills. I mean, that's just the reality. Data is becoming so it is so important. It's becoming one of the most important assets within basically any business. And so if you have the skills to think through how to build an analytical solution, regardless of what tool you're using, Power BI being a very good one, you're going to you're going to maintain your value within an organization. And you can only see that in the future, that value is going to get more, become more and more and more. And that's just going to drive up the adoption, drive up how many people know about these tools, use these tools. I think that Excel analogy is a really good one, right? Like that's exactly right. Like no one even thought about calculating things in a spreadsheet before the prior versions to Excel, and then Excel sort of took over. And yeah, it's going to be the same here. It's going to be exactly the same thing.
Sorry, didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. Go for it.
And I guess we need to make one addition. Knowing Excel and knowing Excel are two different things. This tool is so overwhelmingly big, and you can do so many things with it that if you ask someone how good is your knowledge in Excel, and this person says very good, you need to be conscious and you need to ask what they really know. I guess it's the same thing with Power BI. And not everyone in a department is going to be a Power BI developer. Some of them just need to know how to create reports on an existing data model. So maybe the person which now creates pivot tables, regular pivot tables in Excel with closed eyes, or writes VBA statements, tomorrow learns how to create a data model and to do an ETL process. Not every person will do that. Not every person creates VBA scripts in Excel today. So my understanding is people usually learn these skills not only during their working time, many of them during their spare time, like I did. And what they need is a motivation that shows them what they will be capable of, that they can create solutions that are stable, not like VBA. That after they created a proper Power Query script, they don't have to do anything except pressing the refresh button. Then they get the cup of coffee and go into their spare time very early. And of course, this is what you mentioned already, that you can raise your own value within the company, but also for other companies when you learn this stuff. And when they have this motivation and see what the benefit of this is, everything works on its own, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, totally. And one of the other things that I really believe now is that it's actually becoming more than just Power BI. I think the Power Platform is going to be a big thing. I'm not sure what your view is on that, but it's not just Power BI. It's also building apps on your data. It's also building automations around your data, and Power Platform has AI builder, it's got virtual agents. I think the Power Platform as a skill set is phenomenal. You can generate phenomenal value, from time savings to better decision making, to anything you can imagine around optimizing what you're doing within a business can be done with a Power Platform. So look, I'm keen to hear your take, what you think. I mean, and if you're doing anything with the Power Platform as well.
I do not work with other tools than Power BI, honestly. Of course, I know them. And I guess the concept that stands behind, so no code, low code, to get over this urge to get developers. There are just not as many as we need on this planet, and they just reduce the hurdle to learn this stuff, so that even people like me without a technical background is able to do BI, and that way you can create apps and automation, as you said. Low code, no code does exist, but you know how many people already struggle with no code, low code BI and Power BI. And I simply think, because of the sheer mass of all those tools, it's hard to get all this knowledge into a single person. So if you want to develop apps and do automation with Power Apps, Flow, Power Automate, it's called now, and Power BI, if you want to do all those things together, and virtual agent and all those things, it's hard to keep track. It's even hard to keep track with Power BI only. And you need several people to bring this knowledge together. But those people can be from a non-technical department, what was simply not possible 10 years ago.
Yeah, look, I think we're still just at the beginnings, no doubt about it. I mean, I would even only say that some of these tools around Power BI have really only matured in the last 12 to 18 months. Like I personally wasn't even a big fan of Power Apps when it first came out. It was just still too convoluted, and they've really improved the whole UI. They've improved the templates. They've improved the speed in which you can build these apps now. So a lot of these things have matured, and I just think I've just got this personal view that Power BI is just going to be one part of this optimization beast that they're developing with the Power Platform. And again, it's just a way to elevate your value as a person within a company, or just generally, out there in the market. You can really do some quite transformational things. But what it always comes back to is it's all about data. It's all based on data. And if you can become that that expert in this data field, you can do some pretty amazing things.
Definitely, yeah.
What are some of the things that you really like about Power BI outside of just the generic ones? Some of the features, some of the new features, some of the more enterprise and governance type, enterprise governance and architecture type parts of it. What are some of the there's been a lot of development on that in that space over the last couple of years. So yeah, what are some of the good things you like there?
One thing I like very much and that my customers appreciate a lot is simply Power Query. No matter which course I give, an introduction to Power BI Desktop or an introduction to the Power BI tools in Excel, people come back to me and say, hey, do you have a further course for this thing called Power Query? That's amazing. We can get those data sources all together and transform them, shape them, and just import it to wherever. Not really wherever, but Excel sheets or data models. And it's simply amazing how flexible this tool is. If you know a bit about lists and records and stuff, you can do so many amazing things, and people are not even aware. And the good thing about this is I was in their position. I wasn't aware either, even though I knew I had the tool. And they all have it in Excel now. And you know how many people are importing data into Excel manually every day and copying the VLOOKUP down to cell 200,000 or something. And you simply don't need to do this anymore. But they don't even know that the tool is inside their Excel version. Not talking about that learning Power Query takes some time. Even though it's very visual, in contrary to DAX, where you never see what happens behind the scenes. But they don't even know that it's there. So whenever I get the chance, I just want to shout out, there is Power Query. Click the button, use it, and figure out how great it is. And that this tool is in so many other tools. Call it data flows, call it Power Query, call it get and transform and Excel, whatever you want to call it. It's in so many different tools. And this supports this low code, no code. I learned it in one software. And even though I'm not an IT person, I learned it in Excel, and I can go to SQL Server, Azure Analysis Services, which platform whatsoever. And I can use my knowledge, and I don't have to relearn.
Yeah, and I think one of the more recent additions, it is connected up with data flows, but it is also connected up to Dataverse, I believe, as well. And Dataverse is sort of like a central. I think Microsoft are pushing it as sort of like a central data hub for all of your tools, etc. So instead of all of the tools within and technologies within the Power Platform. So instead of trying to build your data models, I think within Power BI specific reports in isolation, you can try and build up a more sort of data lake, data mart within this Dataverse area, and then you can link your Power Apps to it. You can link Power BI to it. You can link your notifications through Power Automate, etc. And they're even actually, they've embedded it on top of that online as well. So I think that's a really, there's a really strong use case for it to centralize a lot of your data activity online now as well. So I was quite excited to hear the direction there too.
Do you have many customers using Dataverse?
Oh, look, I don't really know. We haven't got into it too much. It's too, I think, new. I think people are still trying to. Most people are still trying to get their minds around, Power BI and Power Apps and Power Automate. But I think they're branded, and Microsoft have branded it better, and are also sort of selling it a lot better as well with the Dataverse, and the reasons why you would use it. Just having a standardized data model, and then being able to leverage Power Apps templates and Power BI templates. That can speed up the development of these of these tools. It can speed up the implementation of these tools much quicker than if you're trying to develop bespoke things all by yourself. And Dataverse also connects in really well to Dynamics 365. So if you're using the ERP system around Microsoft, and so you can see how it brings a lot of these tools all together now, which that connection point I don't think was really there before. But I think it is, it is becoming a more viable option and a more sensible option if you can understand how to stitch these all of these tools together. So, look, that's a long-winded way of saying I've really dived into it too much, but I've been reading a lot about it. So I'm starting to get a lot more excited about it, and we might create a bit more content about it as well, because we're evolving ourselves. We were just solely Power BI, and we feel internally that the Power Platform, as I've been saying, is becoming a much bigger thing than we might have thought 3 or 4 years ago. I sort of thought that Power BI was going to be the center of the universe, but it seems like there's going to be more. There's a lot more planets in the universe. It's growing. There's more to it. So, and so what are some other interesting insights that you've had working with some of your customers? Do you usually work with sort of small to medium size, or are you working with some larger enterprise customers? What's your mix there?
Oh, that totally differs. I had companies with 5 people just trying to figure out what BI is, and I have worked for departments within big companies. That's totally different. But even companies with a huge BI department have non-technical departments that don't get the capacity, and sometimes they don't even have Power BI knowledge, but enterprise data warehousing knowledge with other technology. So you find even there are people who need support with Power BI, and sometimes it's really this single person and there we circle back to this marketing thing. And one customer who told me, my boss is coming to me and telling me, here's Power BI desktop, I want a BI solution, and marketing is saying, Microsoft is saying it's like Excel, so you should be capable of doing it. Please, I need the result tomorrow. And he says, I have no clue what to do, but my boss thinks it's easy, so I'm stupid if I can't deliver. And so this is more psychologically, so that you don't, so that you tell those person you're not stupid. It's not the same as Excel. It takes some time to learn, and please give them the email address of your boss to tell them the truth.
It is quite. It is interesting how Microsoft have marketed Power BI from day one, isn't it? They really are fantastic marketers. You got to give it, and salespeople. You got to give it to them, and that's obviously why they're a trillion dollar company. I'm not sure if they are right now, but they once were, weren't they? But I mean, the reality on the ground is actually a little bit different to what they say at their conferences and in their marketing materials and on their website. But look, I guess they're doing us a favor. They're getting a wider distribution of this transformational tool, and then we can come in and really empower users of it that little bit more.
Yeah, when you think of the very early beginnings of Power BI, so really the Power BI tools in Excel, I think Microsoft didn't advertise it at all. So it really made it harder to work with it. When you try to get your hands on Power Pivot in Excel 2010, it was an external add-in. You could implement it for free and could work with it. It was not very stable, but you could work with it. In 2013 it was integrated, but it depended on your Excel version whether or not you could enter Power Pivot, so the window where you could develop the model. Everyone who got a file with a developed model could use it, but you could not develop it further. So it was hard to get on this license. The same in 2016. And in 2019, now I guess everyone with every license can use Power Pivot again. So it was really hard to get your hands on it. And I simply didn't understand it. And I remember that a couple of years ago, I talked to Rob Colley via email, and I said, do you understand why they don't advertise it? And he said, they should give me the money, I would do it. and was not understandable. And now, I guess, when I became a freelancer in 2018, it was still a struggle in Germany to find people who know Power BI and use Power BI. I don't know why Germany was so far behind. Sometimes I think it's because of English. Most of the content is in English. But 2019, 2020 was a big bang. And now many more people also, because of Office 365, know about Power BI and want to use it.
Yeah, no, look, I think that timing sounds about right. And it was also, you make a really good point about the contrast between how Microsoft marketed Power Pivot and how they did such a poor job, and then because of that, there was no sort of ecosystem built around it to educate users and to really to really utilize the tool effectively, and in a big way within organizations, even though it was transformational even then. But then with Power BI, they've marketed it as, they've sort of gone the other way, where they've marketed it so well and made it look so easy that everyone's now using it, but using it like pretty poorly. But that has opened up this. A new ecosystem has sprung up around it and has provided a lot of opportunities for consultants, educators, for developers. So it's a really interesting contrast. I really enjoyed thinking a little bit about that as you were describing it, because look, even though we can laugh at how Microsoft make it look so easy, and still do. I mean, they still make Power Apps. They still talk about Power Apps being the easiest app development tool like you've ever seen, and it's still actually quite difficult to really master. But in marketing like that, it is opening up plenty of opportunities for others to make a living around it.
It's about reducing obstacles. My example is always, if I couldn't use my mouse to click on symbols in an operating system like Windows, but instead had to type in command lines in a tool, I wouldn't use a computer still today. That would be too complicated. But reducing this hurdle so that even an idiot like me is able to use a computer, works that way. And Power BI isn't simple. DAX isn't simple, but it's way more simple than before. I had the pleasure of having Jeffrey Wong, they call him the inventor of DAX, on my podcast. And I have no experience in multidimensional, so the predecessor to Tabula, to Power BI. But he explained that in Power BI, we can just load data and see if the result is correct. Oh, a data type is wrong. So click change data type, and it happens. In multidimensional, you had to do all this planning before even a single line of data, even a single record was loaded. Everything needed to be defined. Think about this. Try to create a data model before you can load a single row of your data. I wouldn't be able to do it. And MDX was more complex. Data modeling was different when I got them right. So they reduced it to a level that you can just do agile development. Just try and see if it works. And so it is way more simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, another really good point is that that they probably made it as simple as they can. Based on the various features that you need to bring together to actually get a quality solution. One of the big trends though, I think, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, is I feel like they could make it even easier. Like I feel like there's more automation in how you can create Power BI reports. I even some of the things that we work on at Enterprise DNA and have been working on is trying to automate DAX a lot more. Like instead of having to write out code, you should be able to sort of click a few buttons and have a lot of the formulas just created for you. Reporting templates, model, how to build a model based on the tables, automatically completing your model, for example. I think there's more that can be done. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, and what are maybe some things that you think could make it even easier?
The problem with things that make life easier is that people don't deal with the concepts behind it. So if I have a tool that creates DAX for me, and I'm not able to read the DAX behind it, I'm in trouble. When I cannot tell whether the figure I see is correct or not, I have problems, because my boss would be the first one who asks me, well, what does this formula do? How did you calculate this figure? I pressed this button and the tool just pushed it out. Are you sure it's correct? So I want people to understand what they do. And I'm definitely not the master in DAX and not the master in data modeling. I know enough to get my things done, but you need to deal with the concepts. And if you try to write DAX and have never heard about filter context, row context, context transition, everything you do is luck. I don't know how this future tool will work when you are able to just dictate what you want to have, and DAX is written automatically for you. What Microsoft is working on, I simply cannot remember the name, where a lot of AI is involved.
Oh, okay, yeah, I haven't actually heard of that. Is that a new thing that they are working on, and is there some sort of project name behind it?
There's this very famous AI. Is it an engine or a project? I don't know. The world was talking about it for a while. So this thing could do miracles.
GPT-3. GPT-3.
Yes, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And they are using it for being able to create DAX just by talking or writing what you want to have, like in Q&A.
Yeah.
And if this really works and I always get the right figure, fine. But what if I don't get the right figure and I can't tell the tool how to do it? I must be able to understand what's happening behind. Okay, you can always say when I use an Excel formula, like something mathematically, a statistical formula or something, I also don't know how it is calculated in the background, but maybe I find the algorithm to do it and recalculate the figure with a calculator or on paper or whatsoever. But if I don't even know what this formula in the background means, I find that scary.
Yep. No, look, I mostly agree with you. I definitely feel though that, if we want Power BI to be used by as many people as using Excel now, which is, estimated to be about 300 million or something, right? As an estimate. I think that DAX is too, it's too complicated. Like we know it's powerful, and if you can understand it, it really opens your mind in terms of what is analytically possible. But my true feeling about it is it's too complicated for the masses. You're never going to get those sort of numbers. And so if you can try and create a little bit more automation around how you formulate your formulas based on the data that you have, I think there's a lot of automating that can be done. For example, right? Like if I was to want to calculate a whole range of time intelligence calculations based on a singular measure, right? I should be able to, in Power BI, once I have my core measure, like my sum of my revenue column or whatever, I should be able to click somewhere and say, I want my month to date, quarter to date, year to date figures for this particular measure. And it should just be very, very quickly.
Yeah, what you can easily do with TE 2 and 3, or even better with Bravo from SQL BI.
Yeah, so look, I guess there are tools there that kind of do it. But you want to. I would want to extend that more. I would want my moving average formula, my rolling average formula, my year on year comparison. There's a lot of things that I think are very common that you can you can really probably create a model with 40 or 50 measures quite quickly, and that would do 80% of the analytical work for you, and then you would have your edge cases that you might need to have a really solid understanding about how DAX works for that. But I don't know. That's just like a personal thing. But maybe
I'm not really using it. But isn't this what quick measures are meant for? Not for having a single measure and then getting all the time intelligence measures out of it. This is something you can have with external tools like Bravo. But this moving average and something, there are already patterns that you can use.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But it's so badly executed. It's so badly executed inside of Power BI. And I have a feeling that because of its poor execution, it's why they haven't changed anything on it for like three and a half years. Like they've made no enhancements to quick measures for 3.5 years. So something's off there, right? Like you would have thought that they could improve, if they really focused on that, they could have made some pretty big enhancements over the years. So yeah, I don't know. That's just me sort of thinking about ways that we can empower more developers on Power BI. I mean, we're trying a few things in Enterprise DNA, around things like that, but also in other areas as well. Things like design templates, theme generators, all those sort of things. Just trying to break down everything that goes into creating a quality Power BI report and a quality implementation of Power BI, and trying to think, okay, can this be automated? Can this be made easier? If you do that, I think there's a market out there for it. As Power BI gets more and more widely used. Yeah,
I think especially for this visualization thing, because it's easy to understand. You see the results, you see the color scheme, and if you like it or not. And creating reports can take some time, especially when you're not fit with which color fits to which one. And like me, my reports look awful, definitely. But when I take a look at Reed Haven's, for instance, they look good. So why not using those templates for my reports?
Do you find that it's quite rare to find developers who have everything, the sort of like the full package, where they have the analytical mind, they have the data literacy, but then they also have the design and creativity skills to create compelling reports? Do you find that it's quite hard to find those individuals who have that all of those skills all at once?
It's definitely hard. If I think of the community, it depends on the level that you're talking about. Of course, there are people who have all those things together on a certain level, but if you want to have a person that has all those skills, like on a level as Marco and Alberto have their DAX skills, that won't work, I guess. There is not a single person on this planet. That's why my wife is working for a big e-commerce company here in Germany in the BI department. And BI is very specialized there. You have people who do ETL all day long, nothing else. You have the data modelers. You have those people who write the KPIs. And here in Power BI, you need to do everything on your own. Yeah, it's all combined. So I guess that just comes along with a reduction quantity. If you have to do everything from this BI process with a single person, you just need to cut down your expectations. I think my very first podcast interview was with Miguel Myers from the Power BI CAT team. He's responsible for report design, and he does amazingly looking reports. And we talked about that it's hard to have all the skills in a single person. He said, hey, this is why people are specialized. You just need to ask for help. And I said, yeah, but when I am as a Power BI consultant with a customer, I can say, hey, I built you the data model, but we need to add the specialist for the data modeling, for the data visualization, and one for DAX. It's hard to do this. You can't come with a 4-people team. You're just a single person. So you need to see where your skills are sufficient and where you maybe add some help with another person.
Yeah, no, good. Some good thoughts there. I guess in conclusion, it sort of just makes you, if you can bring all of those things together as a person within an environment who needs more analysis and reports created, I mean, your value is just much higher, isn't it? You can really master all of those key skills.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we're getting close to wrapping up here, Lars. So I guess a final question for you: what are the things that most excite you about the future with Power BI?
Microsoft made a lot of noise about data marts recently. To be honest, I didn't have the opportunity to work with it in a project yet, also because it's still in beta. But I'm pretty much looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to, DAX users being able to write DAX in a more simple way, as we talked about with this AI-related feature. I still don't know what to think about it, if it's a good development or a bad one. But as you said, if people are brought to more using it and getting good results, maybe I'm on the wrong path, that they always should understand the basics. Maybe it just works. Let's see. Mm-hmm. But there will be many more people who, like me, have a non-technical background, but liking and loving all this data stuff pretty much, so they can completely change their career into a direction that they simply like more. And I didn't really like this controlling stuff, but I really love what I do now, helping people with data. And there will be many, many more on the market who will completely turn around.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I keep saying this almost on every podcast, is that I still feel like we're at the infancy of the impact of what Power BI is going to have out there. So there's no doubt it's going to be, a lot more opportunities for anyone who wants to really explore what this tool can do for any unique scenario, but also for transformation across their entire organization. Because you really, I'm sure you agree, you can actually really transform what you do across a wide variety of functions within a business, just by implementing Power BI well, being more immersed in the data assets that you have within your organization.
I think now we're digging into data-driven cultures and stuff, and that's definitely not my topic. I know a couple of people from the community would love to dive in here. Having data and having people who create good reports doesn't mean that people are using it and trying to conclude from those data how the business should run in the next couple of months or years. You need to create this culture that people want to work with it and not just gut feeling. But if you have this, and I'm not the right person to build this up, but I know it's important, then this tool is absolutely at the right place.
I think the big thing for me is just the immersion, the data immersion. Where I've really seen the biggest impact is where you walk into an office and they've got these big screens around the office, and they've got a Power BI report that's sort of updating every couple of hours. Then you go to your computer, and then your daily report is sort of one click away from your email.
It's crazy.
It's sort of that. That is where I've seen the most successful implementations and the biggest buy-in from individuals within these organizations to to what they're doing with Power BI is just this more immersion. And the more that you can get that immersion within your data, the more it just becomes like electricity. It's just there, right? It's the data, the insights are just there, and you're all of a sudden you're making decisions, based more informed decisions than you were, with your monthly meetings that you had 3 years ago. So, that's how I feel. That's where I feel things are going, and the savvier organizations are getting there earlier than others, I think.
I agree.
Nice one. Okay, Lars, why don't we wrap up? I think we've got to about an hour or so, and I think that's a good time to round off. Really appreciate our chat today and all of your insights. You've obviously had a lot of experience in the area, so it's always good to sort of just talk about what's going on in the industry and what's going on with all the successes and challenges that others are facing out there. So I'm sure the listeners would have got a lot out of our discussion today.
Yep, it's always fun about talking about Power BI, and I appreciate the invite. Thanks a lot again, and have a great day.
Cool, thanks, Lars. Thank you all for joining in on this chat on the Analytic Mind podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on all of your or on your favorite channel, and we also put this up on the Enterprise DNA YouTube channel as well if you want to check it out there. Okay, thanks all. Thanks, Lars.
Cool. Bye bye.